Hello, in this video I'm going to go over my pure class Magicka Sorcerer that I have created a build for the Update 50 setup, and I have built something here that is really fun to play in my opinion. It's a little bit of a busy rotation for the build. I'm hitting right around 120,000 on the build for a parse on the trial dummy, so it's hitting very well. I thought I would start off with the style that I've created for this build in case people are interested in that. I've created a Psijic Order uh, creation here, mostly Psijic Order stuff. The back bar, let me back out of this so I can show the back bar staff. I did a little something different for the back bar here. I added, of course you can't see it in this view, but it's a deep sea Corsair staff. The main colors I'm using are Divine Gold and Tainted Turquoise. I have Evermore Gold on the staff as well. So if you like the look of this, that's essentially what I did with this uh, build. So if you want to freeze the screen and kind of get an idea of what I used there. But let me see if I can zoom into the staff a little bit. It's kind of a neat looking staff. I thought you can purchase this out of the Crown Store when it comes up. It's a Deep Sea Corsair armor pack. And then the Psijic style is available in Somerset. I believe you have to do some of the dailies in Somerset to get the Psijic style. So let's go into the build. I'll just pull up the parse that I just did here. As you can see, I hit 121,133 on the dummy. We'll get over here to the gear. Oh, and by the way, just to show, I missed 49 light attacks while doing that, so it's still a very good build for missing that many light attacks. As you can see, it's not a perfect rotation. You do have to babysit a couple of things. I'll go into that when I start the parse and talk about that. But the main damage contributor here on the build is concussion, so that's not really a surprise with the sorcerer. But I'll go into the gear sets here, and then we'll analyze the damage and all that after that. So I am a Dark Elf sorcerer with the Thief Mundus stone. The two class masteries that I'm using are Font of Power and Static Reverberation. And then I have Ghastly Eyeball on the food. The champion tree, I have Deadly Aim and Master at Arms. That's going to buff your single target and direct damage. And then I have Wrathful Strikes and then Backstabber on for the trial dummy. If you go into content, I recommend swapping Backstabber out for Fighting Finesse, so you don't have to worry about whether or not you're flanking an enemy. It's just always going to be on, and there's only a difference of 2% critical damage there, so it shouldn't be that big of a difference in content. Especially like if you're going into Sunspire, you don't want to have Backstabber on. The dragons are never really going to be in a position where you can take advantage of Backstabber, so I would just recommend, if you're going into content, using Fighting Finesse in place of that. The only time you ever want to use Backstabber is if you're going to be behind the enemy for the most of the duration of the fight. And in content, that just is not that easy to guarantee. So I would just make it easy on yourself and put in Fighting Finesse instead. As usual for the fitness tree, I'm using Boundless Vitality and Fortified with Rejuvenation. Again, if you're parsing, you can slot Rejuvenation in content. Probably better off putting something else there because Rejuvenation is not really that much of a help. For the most part, it's only 90 recoveries. It's not that big of a game changer, so you could probably get a lot more benefit from maybe if you're just doing overland stuff, or during trash packs in a dungeon or trial, you could put siphoning spells on him. That'll help give you some magicka during that time. Something to think about there. Celerity will give you 10% movement speed. If you do go into a trial or a dungeon, make sure you're slotting that fast res CP node. You might, if you're a DPS, you're going to be asked to take care of resurrections, so don't neglect that. So to go over the the gear pieces. For the two 5-piece sets, I am using Monolith of the Storms. This is out of the Infinite Archive. Whenever you activate do damage with a storm calling skill either on the first tick or the fifth tick, then you can land a monolith, and then if you have 3 of them up, they connect and do damage with lightning beams, basically. They also will give you 100 weapon and spell damage per monolith that is up, so that is a new upgrade to the set that they did a rework on. And then Storm Cursed Revenge, that set comes from Shipwright's Regret. If you're not familiar with that, let me just go into the inventory so I can show what these sets do. The Monolith has 1 line of critical chance and 2 lines of weapon damage, and then dealing damage with a Storm Calling ability initial hit or the 5th tick creates a Monolith near the enemy for 10 seconds, up to 1 second, and up to 3 total. Your Monolith will connect if it's within 28 meters of another one, and it will do shock damage every 2 seconds to an enemy that is near the links. And that is every 2 seconds per enemy. So then you have the added, each monolith gives you 100 weapon and spell damage. So then we have the Storm Cursed Revenge. This is a light armor set from Shipwright's Regret. It has 1 line of max magicka, 1 line of weapon damage, and 1 line of penetration. And then when you deal shock damage, you have a 15% chance to deal an extra amount of shock damage to the enemy and up to 2 other enemies within 5 meters. So this is really going to start clapping on extra enemies when you activate this. Gives you a little bit of AoE damage on a sorcerer, which they're not typically known for AoE, but this kind of helps that avenue out a little bit. And then I'm using the Shattered Paths Signet, of course. And then on the back bar, I have the Maelstrom's Perfected Lightning Staff of the Crushing Wall. This is going to increase the damage of blockade of storms. So that's a good thing to go over the gear set traits and glyphs. So I have 2 front bar charged daggers. One of them has a flame enchant. One of them has a shock. I'm doing that because I want to increase the shock damage from everything on here. So I'm implementing a shock glyph instead of a poison glyph. Then I have the infused weapon damage Maelstrom Arena Lightning Staff. This is the perfected version. If you do not have the perfected version, don't worry about that. It's only going to add you penetration on your back bar. If you have the normal one, that is absolutely excellent. Go ahead and use that instead. Or I should say, if you have that one and not the perfected one, you can always work towards getting the perfected one, but this one works great if you just have the standard version. Then I have a 1-piece Zaan's mask just for the critical chance bonus of the 1 piece there. Then I have Monolith of Storms Jack. By the way, the Zaan's is a medium with a Magicka glyph. All of my armor is divines with Magicka glyph, so I'll just cover that now. So medium head, medium chest of the Monolith set, medium Monolith arm cops, light Storm Cursed sash, light Storm Cursed gloves, medium Monolith guards, Storm Cursed light shoes, and again, they're all divines with Magicka glyphs on all of the body pieces there, the armor pieces. Then I have all 3 bloodthirsty with weapons glyphs that give Magicka recovery, 1 Storm Cursed amulet and 1 Storm Cursed ring. So just to cover real quick for where the Storm Cursed set is, I have the ring, the necklace, the shoes, the gloves, and the waist. That keeps this set on at all times. I wanted to have this on at all times because whenever you do shock damage, this can activate. This does not have a cooldown, so you never want to have this shut off if you really want to capitalize on the damage that this can do. The Monolith, once you have 3 monoliths up, you can just wait for 10 seconds before you want to apply another one because you can only have 3 of them up at a time at the most. So, and I'll go into what I'm doing here on this build that really helps keep this stuff up really high. So stay tuned for the skills because I think I'm doing something really unique with this build that I have not seen other people do. If it's been done before, then I'm just coincidental here for what I'm building here for the skills. So we'll go into the build here and we'll cover these skills. As I said before, I'm a Dark Elf with the Thief Ghastly Eyeball. So the front bar skills, I have Inner Light from the Mage's Guild. This gives me 5% max Magicka on its own, and it also gives me Major Prophecy and Savagery on my front bar, in addition to proccing the Mage's Guild passives, which is helpful on this build because it is kind of a little bit heavy on the Magicka skills, so this is really helpful for sustain on the front bar there. Next, I have Lightning Flood from Stormcalling. This will activate the Monolith set and activate the Storm Cursed Revenge if possible as well, because it's lightning damage and it is a Stormcalling skill. Next up, I'm doing something a little unique, as I said. I'm using Mage's Wrath as my spammable on this build. And the reason why, there's a couple of reasons why. One, it does shock damage. Two, it's cheap to cast. And honestly, this is really not a true execute. It does activate an extra damage when the enemy is below 20% health, but the base damage in and of itself doesn't really kick in like traditional executes do, and it really isn't as strong as a lot of other executes. So I'm using this because it's cheap to fire off, and then also it activates, again, both my 5-piece sets, and it will activate the monolith and keep the monoliths up. So if I'm hitting something that does drop below 20% health, it's going to hit enemies within a 5-meter radius, which is the same radius as the Storm Cursed set. So really, this is going to pair really well with Storm Cursed. Then we have Crystal Frags on the... This is essentially kind of almost an execute for the sorcerer. When this starts to hit, this really hits hard. And I basically only fire this when it lights up. I don't sit there and hit it all the time. I only cast this when it turns to the pink color on the skill bar. We'll talk about that in a minute when I get into the analyzing the parses a little bit more. And I am going to do a parse to display the build in action here while I'm talking, to show you how well it performs even under not perfect conditions. So then we have Barb Trap and Flawless Dawnbreaker. Flawless Dawnbreaker is just here to give us some extra damage on the front bar. Barb Trap gives us minor force and procs the hemorrhage status effect, which will hit pretty hard when you're using the Shattered Paths Signet. So on the back bar, we have Boundless Storm. I'm not using Hurricane on this build because this does shock damage. So this is going to activate both the Monolith set as well as the Storm Cursed Revenge, because this does shock damage, and it lasts a little longer, so it's not it's not as difficult to sustain because you don't have to activate it as often. Then we have a Mage's Guild scribed skill here using the Shock, Lingering Torment, and Major Brutality in Sorcery. You could use the Critical Surge from the Stormcalling set if you wanted to. However, I will just call out the fact that this does not actually do damage. So this is not going to activate either of your 5-piece sets. And so that's why I implemented this, so that I could at least activate the Storm Cursed Revenge set with this skill, rather than just getting a heal and brutality and sorcery. I'm actually getting a shock damage over time with this, so that's why I implemented that. Next up, we have Shock Reach. This is from the Destruction Destruction Staff skill line. It's basically Destruction Touch morphed to Destructive Reach. And this will put a dot on the enemy, and it will always apply the concussed status effect on the first hit. So concussed is really, really strong on this build. It does a lot of damage. And why that's important is this will, next skill, the Blockade of Storms, if the enemy is concussed, they will be knocked off balance. So you're pretty much going to have this up at all times when you can. Outside of the cooldown area, it's going to be pretty much almost permanent if they are not on cooldown. Then we have Bound Armaments. This is another one that you got to kind of babysit a little bit. When it gets to stacks, you want to fire this off. And then this will give me Major Prophecy and Savagery on either bar. And this will also give me a little bit of, I believe there's a passive from Daedric Summoning that, not my mistake. It will restore stamina when you fire this, and Magicka, because of the rebate passive here. So it's a little bit of a Magicka return there. So there's that benefit there. So that's the skills. So now let's get into the parse here that I did. We're going to talk about the damage. Number 1, concussion hit for almost 3 million on this. It's 14% of the damage of the build. As you can see, I procced it 202 times on the parse, and it had a critical strike rating of about 53.5. A maximum tick of 20,000 for concussion. That's pretty hard hitting. Next up, we have the class mastery static reverberation. This is an incredibly strong class passive that you definitely want to make sure that you're slotting. This ramps up over time, and as you can see, I procced it 251 times, and it does a lot of damage. This is basically almost behaving like the Storm Cursed Revenge set. It does added damage when you do damage, so it's a really good one to have on. Then we have Crystal Frags. Again, this, as you can see, this hit for a maximum tick of 102,000. So this is really going to do a lot of damage when you wait for that to glow pink and only use it in those instances. It does a lot of damage when you fire that off. Next up, we have Blockade of Storms, doing a really good, just a really good amount of damage for a back bar skill. And then we have the Spammable / quasi execute Mage's Wrath, cast 55 times, a maximum tick of 73, an average tick of 23. Bound Armaments fired off 88 times with a maximum tick of 20. Then we have our 2 5-piece sets coming in right here, almost 6% for each of them. So we have Monolith going 6% damage. And then we have Storm Cursed Revenge firing off 103 times. And then Monolith did 72. So there's quite a bit of damage here in a 5-piece pairing. And then we've got Lightning Flood that's going to activate both of these. And then Burning Status Effect. This is light attacks here. And then we have the Mage's Guild skill giving me shock damage and major brutality and sorcery. And then down here we've got Shock Reach and Boundless Storm. The Conduit synergy and some status effect damage there that's just kind of trickling in with light attacks. But as you can see, shock damage is almost 65% of the build. Quite a bit there. And so let's get into a demonstration. And we'll just show the build in action, and I'll talk about what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So I like to start off on my back bar, activating the Mage's Guild skill, and then I light attack and apply my wall. And then I get the other back bar skills up, and then I start flipping to the front bar. Now, whenever you see the Crystal Frag light up pink like that, you want to hit that instead of your Mage's Wrath skill. And as you can see, I'm just going to try and keep everything up and then go at the right pace to do all this. And then it's a little difficult to do this while talking, but I wanted to show basically what you do for the rotation on this. You just want to try and keep everything up as much as possible. Now, if you are not proficient at light attack weaving, I would suggest just going slow, because if you've ever heard somebody in chat or in group get in and they start just mashing buttons together, that person is not doing weaving properly or activating their skills properly. The slower you go, probably the more proficient you're going to be. because you're going to actually have your light attacks count for something rather than nothing, because if you try to stack your light attack on top of your skills too quickly, then they're going to cancel one of the two out, and you're not going to get the benefit of those together. So I would recommend starting off with focusing on firing a light attack first, and then try to make it so that right when the numbers on the skills are changing, this is the fancy action bar add-on that I'm using. Right when the numbers are changing to the next number, you use that as your timer, basically. And you're going to want to make sure that that is right when you're firing your skill. So your light attack comes just before that. And as you can see, I'm not having any trouble with sustain. I'm just hitting the stuff as it comes up. And I'm just going through all the skills that need to be reapplied. And then once you're back to having everything apply, you just basically light attack and hit Mage's Wrath, unless either the bound armaments comes up or if you need to fire a crystal frag. So other than that, you're basically just going through and keeping other things active as much as possible, so you have sustained damage during the rotation. And once you kind of get a feeling of your rotation, you'll get better and better at it. It just takes some practice. It's not something you can just jump in and do. But as you can see, while I was talking, I hit 121,000 on the dummy there. So we're going to look at that parse right here. So that's 121. Again, I missed 71 light attacks during that. And as you can see, again, concussions, number one, crystal frags hit again for 102 for a max tick. And then here we have up and over 6% for both of these sets. That's really good, in my opinion, for a 5-piece set to hit that well outside of a trial set like the Perfected Null Arca set. These are both, this is Infinite Archive and this is a dungeon set. I'm not using a trial setup on this build, and I'm still hitting 121,000 on a Magicka Sorcerer while talking. So that shows you how easy this is. You just need to go slow with your casting. Make sure you're light attacking right before you fire off your skill, and just watch those numbers. I highly recommend the fancy action bar. It is really, really helpful when you are parsing. It gives you an easy number to kind of watch the timers tick down. That has really helped me a lot in parsing. So if that's something that you struggle with and you have the ability to use add-ons, I would highly recommend that. If you don't, you can always just use the skill timer that's ticking right now on the screen, 36, 35, 34, 33. You can always just keep your eye on one of those, and that'll help you manage your timing. You don't actually have to have a sound. You can just kind of look at your skill bar there and watch that while you're parsing, and make sure you keep your skills up that way. Anyway, I'm going to close the video out here. If you thought this video was interesting or helpful and you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to my YouTube channel. I have a very large catalog of videos on my channel. If you go down to my created playlists, or if you click the playlist heading on my channel, you can find all of my organized content there. I have my tank videos all in one folder. You can click and play the list and watch everything just by hitting that, or you can comb through it and see if there's anything there. I also create music videos around the Elder Scrolls Online video game, and I write lyrics and create songs with AI programs and create imagery to go along. Think of it as kind of an old school MTV music video kind of thing, but it's about the Elder Scrolls Online. I have quite a large catalog there, all different types of songs on there. Check them out if you think that would be interesting. It's not just kind of instrumental bard music. It's kind of more modern rock, country. I've got a couple of rap songs on there. Different things to kind of just entertain people while they play the game. Take a look at those and see if they're interesting. I really would appreciate that. I spend a lot of time on those, and they don't get a whole lot of views. So if you would give them a chance, I would really appreciate you at least just clicking on them and seeing what they're about, and give them a listen. I think you'll enjoy them if you like this game even a little bit. You'll enjoy the videos a lot. They've got a lot of thick storytelling in there, but they are also catchy to listen to. They're not just forced into a story of a song. I think they're pretty good to listen to. So give them a chance if you thought this was helpful, or if you think any of my content is helpful. I guarantee you're going to like something in that songs folder. It's not all one genre, so you might have to jump around to find what works for you, but I have covered quite a few things on there, and so check them out, see if you like some of the stuff in there. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in another video. Bye.